Hello, hello. Welcome to Get Connected with Julie Barkus and Michael Tasner. How's everybody doing today? How are you doing today, Michael?
I am doing very, very well, thank you. Just coming off the hinges of that long weekend.
I know.
Still trying to. I'm like, before we know it, the week is already over, and but no, everything is good. Weather in Buffalo is fantastic, and life is good over here.
Yeah, we got a little bit of rain moving in today. So we had a couple of really sunny days, and now we've got a couple of stormy days, I think, heading our way before it cools down a little bit. So
very cool.
It's crazy because here in Chicagoland, I don't know about out there, but it seems like it goes from like winter into deep summer like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's
no huge transition anymore.
same thing with Buffalo for sure. I mean, it was early May was really, really chilly. And then all of a sudden it was like over the weekend, it was like 95 degrees and people are like, now it's too hot. I'm like, oh my gosh. And you're complaining it was too cold. Now it's too hot.
Right. I know there's no perfect temperature. Well, I think perfect is like 70 degrees. So if there's a place that I could move, that would be 70 all year round. I think that would be really nice.
Love it.
Yeah. So today we've got an exciting show for everybody. We are going to be talking about getting leads.
Yeah, I think talking about not just getting leads, but really more the problem of what do you do after you get the leads? How do you follow up? Is there some mindset stuff around the follow-up game? We'll talk about the difference between referral leads and what I call kind of cold traffic leads. So somebody that maybe fills out a form online versus a family that was recommended to you by another family at your center. Mm-hmm. So really just kind of talking a lot about the problem, but also the opportunity then of improving your follow-up game from kind of the top down or even the bottom up. If you have a receptionist that's answering the phones and kind of managing your leads, if it's a director, if it's yourself. So I think just talking through that a bit. And I mean, we'll give a few strategies, but I think when you and I were talking earlier, I agree with you that, I mean, we're now, I think this is what episode either 8 or 10. I'm losing track already, but I mean, at the very least, 8 hours of kind of actionable content.
Ooh,
and
lots of good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, lots of
shows.
Yeah, definitely. So I think to your point, I know you and I were kind of worried about information overload and some of these centers not taking enough of the actions that we've talked about. So we want to make sure that we're continuing to talk through some of the challenges and the opportunities and not just spewing lots and lots of tactics, even though I know that I love tactics, but if some of the other root causes are not fixed, the tactics really won't actually help you.
Yeah, and I think where I've seen a lot of childcare owners stumble, especially when they come into our campuses, they feel like they just can't keep up with the Joneses in terms of like, oh my gosh, here's a boatload of strategies I've got to implement. I just can't keep up with this. And it makes them feel like, we're not good enough. We're not doing things right. And you don't have to be big to be incredibly successful. I just want to put that out there. But when you're looking at what everybody else is doing and every other strategy out there and all the strategies we're talking about, it's not about seeing how many you can implement and how quickly. It's about getting really in alignment with the right strategy for you, which is a tougher piece of the puzzle. So really think about, well, what strategy is going to work for me? And you might even think about, well, what strategy is going to be the funnest to implement, right? Because we talk about live videos, and I think live videos are fun and they always take a little bit of a mindset shift to get over. But once you start doing them, it's fun. But start thinking about which ones will really serve you and are in alignment with who you are and the vision that you want to bring to life. And just focus on the next 1, 2, or 3 things that you're going to do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking of a conversation I just had literally yesterday. It's with one of our childcare centers that we're working with, and she's reopened and driving some of the families back that decided to withdraw and also drive some new leads to get her enrollments full. Mm-hmm. And she sent me over a note of, hey, I went and listened to a webinar and here are 15 other ideas. What do you think of these? And for I always have to take a breath and because here we go. But when I kind of started to think that through a little bit deeper, a couple things are happening, I think, with a lot of the centers that are listening and re-listen to these shows after and that you and I work with is that I think a lot of them are still in that place of fear and operating from a scarcity mindset that if I'm not doing 87 different things right now, because there is a lot of doom and gloom talk, but if you're getting yourself out of that zone and not focusing on all the doom and gloom, obviously that'll start to position you a little bit better initially. But I think it is that concept of you just feel like you have to be doing everything. And really, to your point, it's just looking at what are those 2 things, 5 things, 3 things, 1 thing. What are those things that are going to deliver consistent and reliable results? And that is kind of what I've spent my entire marketing and business career focusing on, is how do you really laser focus in on that 1 or 2? And a lot of times, a lot of you tell me, and Julie as well, that it's referrals. Okay, that's great. But the key word is reliable and consistent. So you can't necessarily rely on, if you need 10 more enrollments, for example, that all of a sudden they're going to come from referrals. Now, can they? Of course, and there's strategies that you can put in place, but I also need you to really just hone in on, and I love that you said fun, what's that 1 or 2 other things that you know that you can just continuously execute that it'll keep you full and drive the results that you're looking for, rather than feeling like you have to be doing these 6 social media platforms. And I mean, I had a couple of centers ask me if they should go on TikTok. And my reply was, you're not even pushing hard enough on Facebook. Why are you? Because there's so much consumption out there and there's so much noise that it definitely confuses people a bit. So I encourage you to look at what are those. It shouldn't be 1, in my opinion. So I shouldn't have said 1. I mean, 2 or 3 kind of go-to strategies that you can just really get good at.
Well, and one is a great start. So one is a better start than none. And if we're looking at, what's really going to get us results, we're probably all familiar with the Pareto principle, which says that, 20% of what we do is going to give us 80% of our results, whereas 80% of what we do is going to give us 20% of our results. So it's really important to hone in on that 20%. And if you are sitting there with like, oh my gosh, I've got like 20 different strategies here, hone in on the 1. And then that's my opinion. Michael's saying 2, 3, I agree, get to that place, but it's better than not taking action and sitting there and stuck or sitting there being frozen. It just takes you taking that next action so that you can then get to that place where you can figure out what the next one is. And I know a lot of entrepreneurs, we do a couple of things. Number 1, we complicate things. I don't know about you, Michael, but I'm really good at this. I could look at an idea, a concept, whether it's our t-shirt line or coaching or this. I'm like, okay, we need to implement like these 50 million steps, right? We need to do all these different things. And it really comes down to, well, no, what's the top 3 to 5 things that you need to do to get the results? So really be thinking about how 20% of what you do drives 80% of your results. And that's super important to be looking at and thinking about, because as an entrepreneur, you guys get into this. Even if you're a director or a leader, you're in the position that you're in so that you could have time to do the things you value most. You want to experience freedom. And another word I hear a lot, Michael, I'm not sure about you, but I hear peace. We want to feel peace inside of ourselves and we want to experience freedom. And those are 2 really important words. And that's what we want to help you get towards. So it's not just about dollars in the bank, although that's really important. Prosperity is really important. But it's also about just how are you feeling on the inside with what you're creating.
Oh, I like that a lot. And I think it goes back to a lot of activity versus results. So I wrote a post for Forbes on this exact concept where I talked about the difference between a results-based agency and an activity-based agency. And then they both have a place, but it also jumps back to the concept of a lot of people thinking they just need to do more. And that's that whole shotgun approach of if I can schedule this open house and I can get on this radio station and I can get a bunch of referrals and do this Facebook Live and post on maybe something once a week on TikTok. And to your point, it's also not in the highest use of their time. A really great book, I'm sure you've at least heard of it, probably even read it, is called The One Thing. And it really kind of talks about prioritizing your to-dos. I mean, they're all definitely not equally important. And really to ask yourself this focus question of, and I think, let me pull it up here so I don't paraphrase it incorrectly. What's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will become easier or unnecessary?
Yes.
So if you continue to get yourself into that mindset and that mode of operating, it starts to like remove the distractions. And I love to do a lot of things also. I mean, it's just that whole that entrepreneurial ADD that I like to call it. And I find myself having to kind of bring the focus back so that I am focusing on what are those one or two things that are going to actually move you forward, that are also the things that you're going to resonate the most with.
Yeah, yeah. And, when we get stuck too in the doing, we have to think, well, where does that come from? And some of us are trying to prove our worth, and we think our value as a person is associated with how much we're doing, right? We're doing. There's got to be value in here. And I really encourage you to think about, well, what am I doing that's driving the result? And also disassociate your value with what you're doing, because it's not really tied up in how much you're doing, but it's ingrained in us from a very young age. I don't know if you've had that experience, Michael, where it's like, all right, who was sending me these messages when I was a kid to say, you got to do. And I know for me, it was my father, where when he would come home from wherever he was, if we didn't have a broom in hand and we're scrubbing down the house and passing the white glove test, whatever it might be, it was like, well, wait a second, you guys have a lazy streak. You're not doing anything. And so as soon as his car would pull in the driveway, we would get up and we would start doing. And we learned that was a huge way that we would get approval and that we would feel valued. And I think a lot of people have similar situations to that, where it's like in the doing. So I've had a client who grew up on a farm. And she with her childcare program, she wouldn't let go of a lot of different tasks, because she's like, no, I was taught growing up that, if I could plunge a toilet, I'm going to plunge a toilet. If I could fix this, I'm going to fix this. And she wouldn't hire anything out. So it was really leading her to work 60, 70, 80 hours a week. And she got so caught up in the doing.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah. But it happens a lot, I think.
Catherine said, good morning, beautiful. So I don't know if she's referring to you or me or both of us, but
maybe you.
Yeah. Good morning, Catherine.
Good morning, Catherine. Nice to see you.
So thank you for the nice comments. So no, I'm with you 100%. And
yeah,
I think if we start to look at the challenge, and to me, it's a challenge, it's a problem, it's also an opportunity of, once you kind of get those one or two or three tactics that are kind of working for you on a regular basis.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things that I am seeing day in and day out is and I'm just kind of thinking this through as we're talking, leads that come in. And when I say lead, it could be anyone that's raising their hand. So that's submitting a form on your website, that's submitting an email, that's calling one of your phone numbers. So they're saying something along the lines of, I want to learn more. And when I start to kind of go through that process, because one of the things that I'll often do after someone kind of becomes a client, or sometimes even before, just to give them some candid feedback, though it isn't always well received, we secret shop them. And we'll see, how long does it take for someone to get back to us? We'll just ask some general questions on the phone. Tell me about your program. Tell me about the price, which is everyone's least favorite question. That if you go right to price, how do they answer it? And start to get this feedback. But what I then realize is that usually after that initial either phone meeting or that initial email response, usually it goes silent. And there's a lot of things that I think that you and I can kind of unpack. I think that there is a lot of mindset stuff around, because I know that I've heard this, well, these leads are junk, or they're not, they should be enrolling immediately, for example, or worked with some centers that they feel they shouldn't have to follow up because their center is so prestigious. And I'm not saying that it's not.
Right.
But I think that there's a combination of some mindset shifts. I think there's a combination of some tactical things, some training things. So I think there's a lot of opportunities that we could kind of talk through without overwhelming people, and kind of really, again, talking through the challenge and the problem here of, as things continue to pick up, my concern is that if you don't have your follow-up game on point, and you start to execute some of these new tactics, that they're going to almost fall on, deaf ears, for example.
Yeah.
And they're going to just kind of be out there, for example, and you're going to continue that mouse trap, or continue the mouse wheel of trying to just fill more at the top of, we need more leads. But usually, leads usually are a good way to kind of start the conversation and infuse a little bit of momentum, like an IV drip, like it's get some a little bit of momentum there. But what I'm finding, and I'd love to hear what you're seeing, that the bigger challenge often is the management of those leads, the way you're answering the phones. Are you doing it? Is your front desk? Like there's a lot of other stuff.
Yeah.
So
I agree. And I think that the leads, the follow-up, again, the follow-up the fortune is in the follow-up, really having good systems in place. And to me, from a mindset perspective, to be brutally honest, a lot of us get addicted to the stress of how we run our lives and how we run our business. So if we're always like, we let things come in and they pile up, and then it's like, oh, but wait, I got, all these people, I can't follow up with these, and I'm always putting out fires. It's almost like we get prideful in having those things part of our life, right? So now it's the time to really engage your active imagination to say, okay, how can I manage things in a more peaceful way, in a more fun way? So a lot of it is shifting your mindset to believe that something is different. Something different is possible for you when it comes to the leads you get in, how you follow up with them, how you build those relationships. But we've seen that too, where it's like we get a whole pile of leads in and then we don't have time to follow up, or we're thinking, yeah, there's no good leads here. When we've seen people shift their energy behind the action that they're taking, and the next thing you know, the results are absolutely transformational. And that's what blows me away. And sometimes I think the results are kind of like magical, but you've got to, really right now, take a look at, what do you want your process to be like when leads come in, or when you start meeting people, however it is, what do you want that to feel like for you? And a lot of times in our mindset, we have negative feelings about it because we're like, well, how am I going to follow up with them? Are they going to like us? Are we going to be better? And then we're not really attracting the right situation or the right people to us, or attracting people who are going to cause more drama for us. That happens too with the clients that we bring on board. So that's just kind of like the mindset angle of this, is to really look at what you want to experience and then start getting clear on what that's going to look like for you going forward. And right now is the time to start setting yourself up for success with the leads that you do meet. And we brought somebody on our team once, and her sole function was to go into childcare programs and just see what happens, to go in for tours, to go in and it was very few centers who actually followed up with a thank you note or a thank you card or some kind of valuable information that would have helped our team member make that decision in terms of where she wants to enroll. So, to me, it's, how do you shift your mindset so that you're not addicted to the stress? And to me, it's about engaging your imagination so that you can really start experiencing a different reality, right? You got to get used to things being peaceful and consistent and fun, and where you see yourself really running your business the way that you desire, really managing your program in a way that's dreamy for you.
I never thought of, just throwing it to our audience here, so getting some good questions and things like that. So if anyone has any questions around kind of lead follow-up and anything along those lines, we'd love to answer those live.
Absolutely.
I never thought of it as you just described it, of being addicted to the stress of it. And I wouldn't say that I'm addicted to it, but I would say that I definitely operate in a similar mentality of like letting things pile up and then like
Ooh, how fast
So,
can I get done?
yeah, so exactly. Because
Yeah.
I mean, I'm getting my master's, and my dissertation paper or thesis is due in like 10 days. I should have been working on it the last 6 months,
Yeah.
and I let it, I let it pile up. And so no, that's it's a really interesting concept
Well,
of,
and there's a reason teachers have deadlines, right? And there's a reason IRS has deadlines, because we're human. And as humans, we do function really good when that stress hits. The endorphins kick in and it's like, whoo, okay, now I got to tackle this. I'm going to pull an all-nighter to get this done. So, it is a human way of operating, but there's a whole different way of operating too.
no, I like that a lot. So if I kind of start to think through what we just talked about and look at, and I don't want to give, again, too many strategies. So I want to continue to unpack it, or too many tactics, so you're not on kind of tactic overload. So I think if we maybe talk through what are some of the pivots. So we talked about kind of mindset pivots. One thing around mindset that I always encourage people to think about is there's kind of a couple of different, with childcare centers, there's a couple of different types of web traffic or leads. So there are typically, and I'll try and simplify it as much as possible so I don't geek out on marketing speak, but there are referrals, which is normally 98% of the time what people are saying it as the number one source of leads. Hey, I mean, how did you get most of your families? Referrals, referrals, referrals. And referrals are amazing because they're pretty much pre-sold, and you still got to do a little bit of follow-up, but they're conditioned to buy, so to speak. So there's that kind of piece of leads. And then on the other end of the spectrum, I would call them cold leads. And those are people that they're not a referral, and they're not cold in the sense that they know absolutely nothing about you, but they're cold in the sense of they just kind of raised their hand and they said, I'd love to learn a little bit more. And what I find when I kind of talk this through with directors and owners, they understand it, or at least at a high level, but then they still treat the cold people like they're a referral. So if you know that these people, they're going to need to be nurtured a little bit more, they're going to need some more love, they're going to need the handwritten card, for example, in the mail, they're going to need a couple of reminders about their tour, they're going to need to see some social proof. Mm-hmm. If you start to look at least initially, how can you improve that experience with those particular leads, even if you don't do anything else that we're going to talk about today, that one thing alone will just start to help improve your conversion. Because from a marketing standpoint, and I love to manage businesses by numbers. And again, I know that it's easier said than done, but as an owner or director or leader in a childcare business, you want to know what are those key numbers. And one of the key numbers you want to be tracking is obviously kind of the number of leads. And then from there, you can be tracking number of tours, how many tours did you give, no show. There's a lot of other metrics that you could be tracking. Mm-hmm. And you're just really looking at how can you simply improve those numbers. So you can either, we'll just use simple math this morning. So let's say you get, 10 leads, for example, in a month, okay? So 10 leads, and that is kind of the top level number you could be tracking. And then from there, you want to look at the process of, okay, well, how many of those 10 came in for a tour? Let's say 5, and then you generated 2 enrollments. So what you're able to do then is you're able to look through the whole process and see, okay, 10 leads, that generated 5 tours, 2 enrollments. So we won't go through all the percentages, but you can obviously then break those out of percentages. Okay, you had a 50% conversion from lead to tour, and then your tour to close, and you can start to get those metrics. But what you're aiming to do there then is you just want to start to uptick any of those metrics that you can. So you can either focus on driving more leads, and that 10 number, you drive it to 20, and assuming that nothing else changes, well, then instead of having 5 tours, you should have 10 tours based on what you did previously. And instead of 2 enrollments, you should have 4. Or you can look at, is there something that's happening on the phone that is causing only 50% of the people to come in for a tour? So what if you had a better phone script? What if you smiled when you were on the phone? What if you took the task away from a receptionist that really doesn't want to be answering these are technically sales type of calls.
Right.
Can you start to bump that number a little bit?
Yeah.
And if you bump that, you could still have the 10 leads and then still improve. So there's a lot of ways to kind of look at this and improve. And as you said earlier in the conversation, it really just picking the one area that you want to focus on.
Yeah. And the thing that I love about numbers, and I know a lot of people get a little, what I call number shy. We had Maddie on back a few weeks ago, and even looking at our books, looking at our numbers, but, a lot of people, there's a whole mindset shift about getting in touch with your numbers. But what I love about numbers is that it helps you see what's working. Right. So if you look at your numbers and it's like, okay, not that many calls are coming in, you could say, okay, well, what do we do to get more calls coming in? So Michael's giving you some great numbers and great numbers.
I don't think we can hear you, Julie.
What's that?
Oh, sorry. No, must have been the audio on my side. Sorry, keep talking.
Now I forgot what I was going to say. No, but the thing about numbers is they show you what's working. So really look at your numbers that way. A lot of people look at their numbers. So again, this is mindset shifting, is that a lot of people look at their numbers and then the numbers make them feel bad. They make you feel like you're not doing something right. But look at it as an opportunity to say, oh, well, what can we be doing more of? What can we be doing differently? What's working with what we're doing? So use the numbers or your key tracking indicators that you're going to be using, use them to help you see what's working and get excited about that, because there are things that are working that you're doing. It's just finding those things that you could be doing a little bit differently or more of to get a different result.
Yeah, just trying to optimize one piece of the puzzle. And I think that's where a lot of childcare centers get overwhelmed, is they look at everything. So, well, geez, we only got 10 leads last month. We only had 5. So they look at the whole piece. I like to just start at one of them.
Yeah.
And you can either focus on driving more leads, and that would be kind of leveraging other sources of traffic and more referrals and different things like that. So there's obviously ways to do that. Or I really believe that it's not just the fortune is in the follow-up, but it surely is, but it's getting the mindset right about the type of leads that are coming in, knowing kind of the best way to kind of tackle these people and how to answer their objections and how to be prepared and how to wow them and deliver a really great experience. That is typically where I encourage childcare centers to focus on, is how can you improve that experience, knowing that if they're not a referral, they're going to need some love and attention from you. And it's either you put some other systems and processes in place, which is normally what I like to do, but that's a piece of it, or you just need to make it a priority. It needs to be one of your one things to focus on. You definitely want to do some mindset work around, these types of people. And I know that you've used the word often, to know that you're worthy of receiving, the dreamy family. So I think that there's a lot of self-sabotage, for example, when you're on with these leads. So that there's a lot of things that you can start to unpack when you really look at this problem of, it's not always just the lead follow-up isn't great. There's usually a lot of other pieces to this puzzle.
Yeah. And the mindset piece is really tricky too, because it's all happening subconscious, and we don't really know that we're sabotaging ourselves. We don't really know that we're not necessarily feeling worthy. Sometimes we get a big slap in the face that it's like, oh, wait a second, I'm thinking this thought, or I'm having this feeling. But a lot of times we're just operating, out of this place that we normally operate from. So this is why it's really important, to have a coach and to work with somebody so that they could be helping you see where the blind spots are and what you're not seeing. I heard Les Brown talking once, and he said, you can't, what did he say? You can't see the cereal if you're inside the cereal box.
Love
Um,
it.
and it was a quote that I used to think about years ago, where it's like, you can't see the picture if you're in the picture. So you can't step back and really see it if you're in it. And a lot of times the mind piece, it's so critically important and we don't even know what's going on. And this is why it's really important to gain that awareness, like, what are my thoughts around this process? And that's one thing I would really encourage you to do is anytime with any strategy, ask yourself, well, what's my thoughts about it? So when you think about your voicemail message, what's your thoughts around your voicemail message? When you think about how the phones are answered in your center, what are the thoughts that you think around the way your phone is answered? When you get a referral in, what are your thoughts? Do your thoughts go to like, oh my goodness, what if we're not as good as they think that we are? Or, whatever it might be. But it's really gaining awareness about the thoughts that you're thinking with each one of these little pieces that's going to really determine where your mindset is and where the up leveling can happen. Does that make sense?
It does indeed. No, it does indeed, of really kind of unpacking the whole process. And there was a good comment from one of the centers here. I'll show it. So it said, I think you should put yourself in the client's place and look for what they would want in a childcare center. So
Absolutely.
it definitely is one of those things that often I think we get so attached to kind of what we believe. And sometimes you get a little bit out of touch with the families and what are they expecting, or what are they demanding? I mean, one of the things that I love to do is to look at listening. I kind of listen to calls and things like that of just, well, what are the things that these parents are asking? Are they all of a sudden asking things that they've never asked before? So there's obviously the standard types of questions. What is the cost? Tell me about it. Do you take infants? So there's a couple of those questions that I hear day in and day out.
Mm-hmm.
But then I might hear something like, what type of values is your center built around? And if that hasn't either been thought through or it's not kind of ingrained in the culture, that it's going to be a tough question to answer.
Mm-hmm.
But you can get a lot of really good insights just from listening to some of these calls and finding out, what's really important to your families. And there's, again, other way you can survey and do different things like that to all your existing families. But you have to make sure you're wording the questions, obviously, the right way as well. But would love you to kind of just start to listen to those calls to make sure that they're being handled kind of the way, as you said it, that you'd like to see these calls handled. And are they saying the right things? And if not, it goes back to me, it's a systems and a process challenge of people tend to not fail. They do the best job that they can or that they're trained to do. So it's just tweaking that. Okay, here's a little phone script, or here's, the 10 questions that I hear getting asked all the times, and here's some ideas on how you can best answer it so that it is in alignment with what you're envisioning for your center. And but also it's going to screen out those families that you don't want, and it'll attract the families that you do want. So simple example with the price shoppers, that if you're not looking to attract those types of families, then you're going to have a good rebuttal when someone asks you, because it's going to come up. What does this cost? How much is it per week? And if you don't necessarily want to compete on price, then you need to have a good reply to that. And there's a way to kind of dodge the question from a sales standpoint of, hey, we just have to discuss it in person and we have scholarships. But at the same time, if you're like, I never want to compete on price. We have the highest, like the best curriculum, the best trained staff and teachers. And we donate X profits back to the community. You want to make sure that's in your answer, because a family that is not going to resonate with that and is just price shopping, that they're not going to come in for a tour. It's going to turn them off.
Yeah. And I like to say, and we actually teach our clients not to give price over the phone, but we love to say, that we don't give prices out over the phone. Something as simple as that, to say that we want you to come in, we want you to see what we have to offer. And we also want to make sure that you're a good fit for us. So you put yourself back in control of the conversation by saying, we're selective on who we let in here, and we want to make sure that you are a good fit for us and our program. And then we'll go through all those details with you and answer all the questions.
No, that's definitely a good script to use.
Yeah.
I think we say something similar. At least I advise people to say something similar, and usually we'll add in the word scholarship to say that we have scholarships available, and we'd like to discuss that in person.
Yeah.
And things kind of change. We have different promotions going on all the time. So yeah, definitely. And I would challenge everyone though that's listening to kind of secret shop, because usually when asked, I can tell you that I'll make up a statistic on the fly, but I mean, probably 8 or 9 times out of 10, the person on the other side is going to give the price. And again, it goes back to just training, and is it the right person that's answering? Should they be actually answering the phones? But again, if it goes back to, if you're aiming to have it where you're getting them in for a tour and continuing to improve that process, it does go back to making sure you've got the right people on the bus that are answering the phones.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with what you said earlier, that it's just such a sales process, and you've got to look at it. And do you have a clearly defined sales process? A lot of owners I know will give up the sales process too early, and they say, okay, here you go, my teacher, you sell the program. And there's no clearly defined process in place. So you've got to make sure that your process is top notch before you release it to your staff. And then you do your due diligence with training them on what that process is for you, however you define it.
I love it. I mean, I think that we've been kind of talking through some kind of little hinge tweaks, and definitely having a kind of a choreographed or well-defined sales process is great. There's a company that I used to work with, not in the childcare space, but everything was choreographed. So what they did was,
so you're watching this whole dance,
Yeah, exactly. So what they did was, they would have people come in. So they were selling kind of business type services. So rather than just trying to sell it over the phone, they were selling kind of a day in person where you would come to their office, and kind of a consultative day. But at the end of the day, the goal was to hopefully upsell them to something else. But what was interesting was that literally the entire process was choreographed. So they would have a limousine pick up the prospect at the airport the night before. They would only have them stay at one particular hotel, which was the nicest hotel in the area. They would only go to one restaurant that had a prefixed menu that was already designed, a certain wine already picked out, like and that was just even before they got there. And then when they would kind of go through this day, they would end up just every little thing. It's just interesting as I'm thinking about it, was choreographed from.
You're just dazzled by the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, there were snacks, all different kinds of high-end snacks in the corner of the room. And the night before, there would be a checklist to go through and make sure that you have all these particular snacks. And then the person would have a little gift basket when they arrived that was sitting there, and the agenda was typed up, and then the menu for lunch, and then even in the bathrooms, they would have little signs that say, welcome, XYZ person. So it was just really, really unique that every little piece is choreographed. But if you start to kind of think that through, of just what are the little things that you can just improve in your process, little tweaks will start to give you better results, whether that's how you're answering the phone and dealing with those questions. How are you showing up and being ready for your tour? Does it seem like that someone is kind of disrupting your day, or are you showing that you're really excited for them to be there? There's just a lot of these little things that I would highly encourage you just to kind of start to think about as you're going through.
Yeah, and that example that you shared is so incredible. And I also think like car dealerships, when you go in and buy a car, especially pre-COVID time, right? I mean, there's a whole song and dance that they're singing to you about the cars, and there's a whole process. They know that once they get you in that car and you have that new car smell going, and then once you buy the car, the whole process afterwards, it's like all laid out and all structured. And one of the things that you were talking about earlier is really warming people up. So there's a difference between referral leads and cold leads. And I really believe that, to talk non-marketing for a moment, non-marketing terms, to me, it's like courting, or it's like dating. And this is the same thing with your staff too, is that buying something or enrolling in something or making the investment decision in something, it's such an emotional process. So we have to ask ourselves, are we connecting on an emotional level? And by having processes in place, like Michael was talking about, you've got the best, with his company, got the wine, you've got the dinner, you've got the limo, you've got the best hotel. And we're not going to do that in our childcare programs, right? But what is it that you can do to really court the people who are those cold leads, to transform them into warm leads? And I think even your referrals that come in need that courting, especially since a lot of the decision makers are going to be the women. And if they just connect emotionally and be like, oh man, I don't know, it's like they were just dined and romanced, right? Then they're gonna be like, I don't know what it is about ABC childcare, but that's the place where we need to enroll. I know that they're gonna be treating our children incredibly special because of how they felt. So it's such an emotional process.
And I'm a huge fan, not to discount anything that you just shared. I'm a huge fan of kind of shock and awe kits as the market.
Yep.
Like what can you have ready that when they walk in, they are getting handed something at the door. Now, this can be as simple as a nice swag t-shirt, for example, with it being summer in most places and warm. I mean, is there something that you could tie in? Here's a little, I don't know, I would want to say, I was thinking cooler because I needed another cooler last night, but that might not be the best gift. But I mean, maybe a fun little, pool toy for the kid, just something that it is fun. And it doesn't have to always have your logo on it. That's one of those crazy things. There's the book, the name is escaping me, but I think it's called The Art of Gifting. And it's all about just, you don't want to be giving people things that just have your logo on them. Like that's the opposite thing that you want to do. So is there a fun phrase that you could I know I mentioned a few episodes ago, one of my favorite books is the Dr. Seuss, All the Places You'll Go book. What if you handed them a copy? It's a $20 investment. So a nice hardcover copy, and there's a handwritten note that says, we're so excited to get the chance to show you and hopefully put our best foot forward today. And just, those little things, I promise you, will start to help in your lead conversion process. You will start to see your tour closing percentages go up. You'll start to see people going on social media and talking about the experience that they had. And what if, and then even after them, getting a little bit ahead of myself, but then after they enroll, what if you just do something that's different? What if you send the mom a $25 voucher to go get her nails done or her hair done? And maybe the dad, you put something in the mail, one of those, beef jerky kits or something. I've gotten a couple of those. They're delicious. Something like that. You don't have to, again, continue to go, to that extent, but even just the small little, here's a $5 gift card to, Starbucks or a local coffee place or something. It's those little tiny micro moments and micro experiences that really will give them the warm and fuzzy. And as we're talking through this, I'm reminding myself that I need to do more of this personally. We have a shock and awe kit. It's actually right around the corner in my office. Jeff, if you want to grab me one of those boxes, I'll even maybe show one of these live, but it has a copy of my book in it. It has a magazine in it. It has like a little notepad, for example. So I'll just show this real quick.
Add a t-shirt into that box.
Yeah, I love it. So, so we've got our little, some nice little local childcare marketing stickers. Can't really see it that well, but we've got a little notepad. We've got a copy of my book, Marketing the Moment. We've got another copy of the No Joke Guide to Enrollments on Demand, and then a copy of stuck to the paper here, a magazine, the little small thing we put out called Childcare Marketing Engage that we printed, 50 copies, and it's just all marketing tips. So we send that to prospects, and it's just that little thing of they're like, well, positions you as the authority.
Yeah.
And the stuff it's not that challenging to get done. And I've encouraged a lot of childcare centers to either publish a small book or even buy 50 copies of someone else's book, for example, and there's a lot of fun ways to do it. But even if you're literally just handing them something,
yeah.
it's better than
And
nothing.
I agree with that. So, when you sign up with Michael, maybe I'm going to sign up so I could get your cool box, your cool box of goodies. But,
Definitely.
And it doesn't, and you might be like right now pulling your hair out going, oh my God, I don't have all that stuff. There's not all that stuff that I could give. But again, think back to your courting people. And, when your date shows up, I don't know if anybody's been single or dating lately. And I think even if you're married, you should be dating, which is going to be a whole different show. But so they show up with a flower, they show up with a card, and just sets a whole different tone for the relationship. So just think about that. You could have roses for mom, when they come in and tour, they get a flower. We had a center where the kids actually, as part of their curriculum, made paper flowers, and they gave these flowers out when people came in and took tours. So they left with a flower. So there's different kinds of things that you can use and send home or whatever it might be that doesn't have to be costly, but it can be incredibly creative. And it just becomes an extension of who you are and your vision. And another example that I want to share with you is, right now, and I've been preaching this for years, you probably have Michael too, where it's like, go online, read books online, do some curriculum, give them a little bit of a taste, right? So now a lot of people are going on Zoom. They've got their online platforms. Why don't you take one of your story reading sessions of you reading a story, put it on a thumbnail drive that you could get for $5. You could even put your center's name on it. And you could say, here, we recorded story time, and we really love little Johnny to be a part of what we're doing. So here you go. Here's a story. He could tune in at your convenience, and you're making that emotional connection. You could also even just record a message, and they could plug it right into their car, and it could be a follow-up message where you just reiterate some important things about your program. Most importantly, that you're committed to partnering with parents to bring the vision to life. And that's really important.
Oh, I love that idea a lot of, you got my wheels turning now of reading the story, then putting something like that on a little thumb drive, for example. There's a lot of companies that do video books. They're a little pricey, but if depending on the investment, I guess, that you want to partake in, those are probably $20 or $30 each. But I think it's just, to your point, you don't have to do everything that we're suggesting. We're encouraging you to pick one or two things
and make it your own. Make it your own. Michael has a beautiful box. Make your own box. Put paper flowers in there. Have it part of your curriculum where the kids write, "We can't wait to spend time with you," cards, or whatever it might be. Teaching them the power of building relationships, and the child gets a box of cards from his potential classmates mailed home to him. So there's different kind of things that you could totally make that are you. So it doesn't have to be like, oh, well, write this book and do this. It could just be, well, what is it that you love about your program? What is it that you love? Is it your outdoor playground? So maybe there's something from the outdoors that you could send them, or maybe it's your organic foods that you love to serve the children. Maybe it's something to an organic place, whatever it might be. So just really be looking at the things that you can do that are extension of you, are an extension of your vision.
And it's all about sloppy success. So we've got a couple of buzzwords. You've got a few, and I've got one. Sloppy success is one of mine.
I've got dreamy. Michael's got
dreamy. So, what I like about sloppy success is that it doesn't have to be perfect. You literally, if you were to say, Michael and Julie, so we love what you're telling us about improving. So the point of today's conversation was around not only getting your mindset right of the types of people that are calling, how you have to kind of treat these leads. And we wanted to focus a lot around kind of nurturing them and giving them good experiences and just doing a few things that are kind of above and beyond and extra that you're normally not doing. And you can just start with one thing, whether that's looking at, how can you improve the kind of the choreographed sales process on the phone, and that'll help. Or maybe you want to look at the tour of what is that little extra kind of fun gift that you can put together. And if you wanted to, I mean, I would challenge you to say, and if you wanted to even do something quickly, in other words, this afternoon, I mean, you could go to Google and Facebook and copy and paste some of your positive reviews. Ideally, you have some kind of letterhead. And you literally go, okay, great. You're going to put maybe on the front and back of the sheet, they're going to have, you can say, here's what other families say about us. Literally just put them all on there. Okay, great. So now you've got that sheet. Mm-hmm. And then you could take your idea of, I mean, here are some of the things that we love about your center that we think you're going to love too. And you're kind of listing here the top 10 or 12 or 7, whatever number you'd like. And then there's another sheet of paper. And then it could literally be that. And then could be a paper flower or something. I mean, just anything that you're improving in the process is going to be better than not adding something. And then this whole sloppy success concept simply means you continue to improve it over time. And I think one of our listeners, yes, is not to be perfect. I will say that repeatedly to myself today. Thank you for sharing that. It doesn't have to be perfect. And I know that there's a lot of perfectionism in teachers and a lot of our educators and owners on this, like it has to be perfect. Now, again, when I say sloppy success, it doesn't necessarily mean that it should have typos or anything like that. It simply means now is the time to take some action. Now is the time to continue to work on yourself and your mindset and to start to just make these little pivots and shifts. And you'll start to notice a difference in your attitude. And that attitude then will start to be reflected in the results that you start to see as well. Because as Julie has said and taught us many times over, I mean, it's a lot of stuff in the subconscious level. And as you start to see yourself making these little kind of pivots and shifts, and it just continues to build and compound essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we talk about attracting things to us, which is a topic I love to talk about, one of the things that the universe or the world loves when it comes to sending you what you want is you having the positive expectancy that you are going to get results. And a lot of people are like, well, I'm not going to do that because what if nobody shows up? Or, oh, that's a lot of work. And, what if I look like a crazy person because, it didn't work? So we can have all of those negative thoughts. But if we switch it over to 2 words, which is having positive expectancy that people are going to show up, and you start giving gratitude for the person that does show up, the one new referral lead or the one new cold lead, whoever it is, a lot of times our mindset will go to a place like, oh, it's only one. It's only one in 90-20. We have to get excited about the one that shows and then build the process of like, oh, more are coming. So what we advise our clients to do a lot is really to use that word positive expectancy and start getting your wow kits or your shock and awe box or your paper flowers, whatever it is that you use, get them done. And if you need 20 enrollments, get them done right now and have 20 of them spread across your office so that you can take delight in every single one that you give away. And you can go, woohoo, just gave away one. We've got 19 more to go. And I cannot wait to see who's going to get that next flower or who's going to get that next box or who's going to benefit from that manicure or whatever it might be. But it sets in motion your ability to attract more people that you desire to you. And this works for clients and this works for staff. So remember those 2 words, positive expectancy, and start putting it out to the world that you expect the results that you desire and you're getting ready. You're taking action. You're preparing. And I always think about like mothers who are going to have a baby, who are going to give birth, right? They don't sit there and go, well, if the baby shows up, when they're here, we'll get that room ready. And maybe then, afterwards we'll have a shower, whatever it might be. No, you go in with positive expectancy, right? You might wait a few weeks, then you announce it to the world, you do your gender reveal, whatever it might be. You start getting clothes, you start thinking about all of your desires for that baby. It's the same thing with clients. Think about it like a new life is coming to you. And what can I do to be prepared, to be ready? And that in itself is going to transform the results that you're experiencing. Positive expectancy for what you want to transpire.
I love it. Wow. We had a couple of great comments. Wow. I love it. Way to go, Julie. Love that. Positive, like lots of really great comments. So,
Perfect.
love it. So our time always seems to fly by. So
I know.
I would love to do a couple quick things. So I know a lot of you have kind of continued to ask, tell me a little bit more. They've seen Julie's shirts. They've heard a little bit about some of the stuff that Julie does with leaders and coaching and with teams and things like that. So I'd love, Julie, for you to tell people a little bit more about kind of some of the fun things that you do and offer. And I'll spend a minute or two doing the same. And as always, we'll end with a positive quote. But I think we gave you lots of good actions and concepts and things to think about. I love how you just kind of ended there with a bang. That was great. And I think mine would simply be sloppy success, and just look at what are those one or two things that you can move the needle on today. But when you combine that with what Julie just shared I'd love the thought of, if you need 20 enrollments, you're going to put the 20 of whatever and be excited to be giving them out, and they're front and center, and you're celebrating them as they go out the door. I mean, that is just that's really powerful stuff. Really powerful stuff.
Yeah, and I love the sloppy success as well. So, like with me, the two things, and I'll tell everybody what I do and how you could get involved. But really write down these three words. If you do anything from my perspective, write down the word court or courting, and then write down the words positive expectancy. And if you could do things that are in alignment with those words, whatever action you choose, in alignment with courting, and think about how you like to be courted, right? Think about, do you like things laid out for you, and how do you like that process to be? But think about it and let yourself really imagine something pretty cool. And you want to give your people that experience too. So courting and then positive expectancy. All right. Did you want me to share a little bit about?
Please, yeah. Tell us. I know you've been sharing some of your fun shirts. I know you've got a mug that I'm going to have to buy a bunch of the mugs.
I know, right?
So tell us a little about that. And again, I know a lot of people have kind of pinged us and said, how else can you help? And obviously we try and keep these shows highly educational and informative, but we want to give you the opportunity, if it makes sense, to have a conversation with Julie or myself, or both of us, that we're here to help and support you as well, and can continue to do that at a higher level as well. So,
yeah. And the reason that it's so important that you tune in every Tuesday and Thursday is because I really believe that the energy that you align yourself with is going to help you transform your results. So use this show as your energy transference time. So you are going to take our energy, our positive belief, and you're going to borrow it as your own, so that you can start implementing and start getting the results that you desire, and the results that, most importantly, you deserve. And you do deserve the results. So please mark this on your calendar and use this as your energy transference time, because we believe in you and we believe in your vision. I've been working with childcare owners and directors and leaders for over 20 years, helping them create their positive, productive, and profitable childcare programs. And we do have a mentorship. We also have some coaching programs that you could get involved with if you are interested, if you're resonating with the message. And to me, it's always about meeting you where you're at. So I suggest that if you're resonating and you're like, Julie, I really want more of what you're saying and what you have to offer, I encourage you to visit my website and get yourself on my calendar so that we can have a conversation and best figure out how we can serve you. And if you go to childcarebusinesssuccess.com, there's a boatload of videos there, a lot talking about staff, talking about enrollments. And I really believe in attracting the right staff and the right clients to you. It's really important. But there's also a free masterclass that you could take. It's called the Drive Method, and that's right on the homepage. And I encourage you to take that course. There's also another one called From Lack to Abundance, as well as Building Your 5-Star Dream Team. So go there, and there's going to be lots of resources for you. And if you're resonating, let's have a conversation and get you plugged in. And then, and our t-shirts, of course, go to happychildcareteam.com. And we're going to be seeing Michael sporting his soon.
Love it.
Yeah. How about you?
So, we are a revenue growth agency. So we work with quite a few childcare centers to just drive them more revenue. And we do that leveraging digital marketing. So we can redo your website and get your site to the place where it needs to be. We tackle social media. We tackle getting you dominating in Google and all that good stuff. But really, at the end of the day, we are a revenue growth agency, and we focus on driving high quality families that you're going to love, or dreamy families, as you like to say. And then also working with you on a lot of the stuff that we talked about today of lead conversion and lead management, and a lot of fun technology that helps make sure that not only are those leads kind of raising their hands, but then they're also coming in for tours and closing as enrollments. So our URL, it's localchildcaremarketing.com. So I'll throw that up here as well. And that is where you can go and get more information. We've got lots of fun webinars. You can grab a free copy of my book. Lots of fun goodies there. So as always, Julie and I appreciate all of you tuning in. I know that I love to thrive on the interaction, so I appreciate a lot of you leaving comments and questions. So please make sure that you continue to share this. And if you have other questions and comments thereafter, we'll make sure that we get back to you as well. But I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. I'd love to, do you have a quote, or would you like me to find one?
Well, I could pull one out of our book here. I opened up to
grab one from your book.
Competition, because a lot of us have the fear of competition. So in our best-selling childcare business success book, we start each chapter with a wonderful quote. I have to put on my glasses so I could see. All right, so here's the quote, and this is by a gentleman named Neil Gaiman, and he says, the one thing that you have that nobody else has is you. Your voice, your mind, your story, your vision. So write and draw and build and play and dance and live as only you can.
I love it. Get some great quotes in that book. Make sure you also pick up a copy of Julie's book if you haven't as well. Well, have a wonderful rest of your day, everyone. Enjoy your Thursday, your Friday, your weekend. And we will see you back here on Tuesday at 9 o'clock Central, 10 o'clock Eastern. Have a wonderful day, everyone. See you all.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.